Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Life Shift podcast. I am here with Robyn. Hello, Robyn.
Hello, Matt.
Thank you for wanting to be a part of the Life Shift podcast and, just tell your story. I found through this journey that everyone's story has a little element that I can relate to or resonate with, even if I didn't experience, anything remotely like what my guest has said or shared. So thank you for just wanting to be a part of this.
Of course. Thank you for, bringing me on and letting me share my story. I'm really
And
excited.
for listeners, this is your first podcast experience. And so I'm sure you've shared your story with many people, but
That is
maybe not in
correct.
this way.
Yeah, I'm really excited to just be able to, continue the reach with my story and hope that somewhere, someone, feels, the same way I did and knows that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you will
Yeah,
get there. And I promise you will.
it's so important. And really, I mean, you hit on the reason that I started the Life Shift and the idea of if someone out there is listening and they hear someone going through something similar or they feel a similar way, if nothing else, they feel less alone in their experience.
Exactly.
Because I think sometimes we hit these experiences where maybe logically we know we're not the only ones to ever go through it, but it sure does feel like we are the only ones that could ever understand what's happening. And so it is my goal that there's someone out there listening right now that hears your story and feels less alone or feels hope or inspiration. So you hit it right on the mark.
I cannot agree more.
Well, for anyone listening for the first time, because Robyn is on the show, the Life Shift podcast really started. It stems from my own personal experience. When I was a kid, my mom died in a motorcycle accident. And from one day to the next, my life was completely different. My life shifted immensely. And around that time, there was not a lot of people talking about mental health or helping a 8-year-old grieve or any of those things. And I felt really alone in my circumstance. And I wondered, as I grew up and as I went through the grief journey, are there other people out there that have like this significant, seemingly small moment in time that changed everything? And it turns out that there are a lot of people with a lot of life shift moments. And, but when you're in that cycle of grief, you just don't realize it. And so I'm just so lucky to be able to talk to over 100 and something people now about their life shift moments. So again, thank you for wanting to do this. Before we jump into your story, though, maybe you can tell us a little bit about who Robyn is in 2024 and what your life is like here.
So today I am an entrepreneur. I own and operate a charcuterie catering company. We are just a year and a half in. I never thought I'd ever be working for myself, let alone start my own business, but here we are. We are chaotic, we're fun, we're crazy. Some days we don't know what way's up, but we thrive in it. We love it. I have an incredible little mini Labradoodle. His name's Napa. I have an incredible husband named Ian. And we just, the three of us, are trying to just live our best lives, right? Every single day, we just pick what makes us happy today. And that's what we're going to do. So, we'll dive into the story, but my story is the reason why I am an entrepreneur today, why I have started my business. So really, when you say life shift, my entire life has been on a total different trajectory since, everything has happened. And I just can't wait to continue to see what the future has in store for me, my family. Yeah.
Were you always someone that, I mean, maybe not the way you just set that up, but were you always someone that like kind of grabbed life by the horns and kind of like went after whatever was feeling right?
Yes and no. Meaning, I was always so busy with everything else going on around me. I look back 5, even 10 years ago. My husband and I have been together for almost 12 years now. And we look back and think how many, years, I don't want to say wasted because wasted is not the right word.
Right.
We're just consumed with, doing everything for everyone else. Right? Family events, family, weddings, friends' weddings, everything, right? I mean, life gets busy. Those are all amazing things. And we were so happy to be a part of every single thing. But our weekends were never for us. They were always for everyone else in our family. And we were always go, 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 just in a very different way.
Right. It
not
wasn't
intentional.
right. It wasn't like getting the most out of life in the way that you wanted, but you were still getting a lot out of life because it was meaningful things. It wasn't always.
It's all we knew. We
Right.
were loving life, right? Back then it was, oh, we get to see our friends this weekend and next weekend and the weekend after that and the weekend after that. But they're just, yeah.
Part of my question stems from the idea of I talk to a lot of people. I've personally experienced this, but like so much of my growing up as a teen, going into my 20s, it was very much like what I thought I was supposed to do in life. I was supposed to do the next thing. And then, okay, well, you graduate high school. Now you need to go to college, and it needs to be a good college, and you need to do well. And then you need to, get a job. And, all these things were just, I don't think of my own doing. They weren't like things that I was like, yes, can't wait to do that. It was just like, I was just the next thing I had to do because so-and-so, whoever so-and-so was, said that I needed to do it. So that's kind of where that question came from. But do you buy into that?
I cannot agree more.
Okay.
Cannot. For me, I grew up in a house where my parents were entrepreneurs. They started their own company at the age of 30. I started my company when I was 30. So I grew up just in that business environment. And I said, well, I guess this is what my parents do. I guess I'll go to business school. So I went to a wonderful business school here in Mass. And when I was there, it was, oh, well, you're a marketing major. You need a corporate job. That's what you do. So, of course, right out of college, got recruited, went right into corporate marketing for 10 years. Didn't think anything of it. Played the game. Every
Did you like
day
it?
No.
Oh, okay. So it was just like you knew that you had to go somewhere for 40 hours and come home with a check and then spend 2 hours every night decompressing so you could do it again the next day.
Exactly. But I didn't know any different. I didn't know that there was anything else out there, right? Because we did what we were told to do. You go to college, you graduate, you get a job. You don't like that job anymore, you get another job in the corporate space, which I did. I worked at 2 wonderful companies when I was in corporate, but it never fed my soul. It was more of almost like a robot, right? You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, you go to bed, repeat the next day.
Yeah. Is that why you guys were filling the weekends and the nights with like all the family and friends and things because you thought maybe that will satisfy that little
Exactly. We were like, well, at least we have, friends to look forward to, or a family party this weekend, something fun, right? Get out of the house, especially when COVID hit too, right? We were both work from home permanently. Yeah. And after COVID, I would still work from home permanently. So that was just kind of, I just need to get out of this house at this point in time. So what do we have planned this weekend that we can go do and see people and not, be just the 2 or 3 of us with the dog just in a house all day long, 40 hours a week.
And I think so many people can relate to the idea of just kind of going through the motions. And to your point where you were like, it's not regret, it's not looking back on like waste. You were doing things and you were trying to find the joy in the things that you felt like you had to do. But at the same time, you're like, did I choose these things? So it's really interesting. And I think there's a lot of connections that I can personally relate to in that. And so that's why I wanted to ask that. But maybe you filled in a couple little pieces, but maybe you can kind of like paint the picture of your life leading up to really what changed things so that you could grab life by the horns and just like run after it.
Yeah. So I was always the planner. I was, like I said, go all the time. I didn't know how to sit still, how to relax really, because that was just my life, right? We are constantly on the go. And
was there a fear in that, by the way?
There wasn't, because again, it's all I knew. I didn't know anything different.
But like, was there a fear of not moving and not being busy all the time? And that, do you feel like you were busy because you had to? Because I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, no, I honestly don't think there was a fear, because I honestly don't remember a weekend that we didn't have something. Like, so and I am not joking.
Yeah.
Because if there was a weekend that we didn't have something, like, we would still go out and do something. Oh, we don't have a wedding this weekend. Let's go out with our friends, or let's go on a nice hike. So we were always still doing something. Yeah. Sitting down, relaxing, binge watching a Netflix show was
Unheard
Never a
of.
thing. Yeah, exactly. It was unheard of in my household. So for me, right, just go, go, go all the time. I was a huge gym rat, right? Like I looked forward to it. That was my therapy. And again, it just kind of go, go, go. You wake up at 5, you go to the gym, you do the work, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Until February 15th, 2022.
Is that your day?
That
I'm
was my
assuming
day.
that's your day.
That's my day. And that day is special to me as well. Obviously, like we'll dive into everything that happened
Go
and my
for it.
moment and
Jump
everything.
in.
But it's a special day for me because I always say everything happens for a reason, right? I'm all going to get very emotional during this as well. A couple years back on February 14th, so Valentine's Day, my grandmother passed away completely unexpectedly. And I remember on the 5th, like obviously I remember her always on the 14th, and on the 15th, I remember thinking like that morning, like grandma's always like looking down at us. Like she always watches over everyone, like just having really good, positive, thoughts with that really sad moment. But later that night is when my life changed forever. I was 29 years old. I ended a work day, shut my laptop, no issues whatsoever, and all of a sudden had a really uncomfortable tightening in my left upper arm. So, I thought, I'm a young woman. Am I having a heart attack? Because it's on the left side. Kind of what's going on? Went to my husband because it wasn't getting better after about maybe 10 minutes. And I said, this is weird, but can you just like look at my arms? Do they look weird to you? My arm just hurts. And the look on his face was like he had just seen a ghost. His only words were, you need to get to an emergency room right now. So, of course, I'm thankful that I live 10 minutes away from one of the best emergency rooms in Massachusetts in Salem. And we rushed there immediately. It was still when the second wave of COVID had just kind of come back in the hospitals. So it was really back to very strict protocols. So I was dropped off at the emergency doors. And by the time I got there, I was completely purple from my fingertips to my shoulder.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
And I'm not exaggerating when I say I looked like Barney. I was completely cold. I had and completely like numb, painfully numb, like pins and needles through my whole arm. And swollen.
It was just getting progressively worse as it was going on?
Worse. Yep. I was pacing around the emergency room, convinced that they were cutting my arm off.
Right. Well, naturally, I think a lot of us would feel that way.
Yep. So fast forward, they finally get me situated in a room. I can now have a guest. My mom came and sat with me because I was just off my rocker and I needed someone to calm me down.
Right. Because we spiral. I think we start thinking about like, well, maybe
I thought
I'm
they were
going to
cutting
die.
my arm off. Exactly. I was like, why is my arm purple? What is going on? Like, I feel fine. I can breathe fine, but clearly something is going on with me. They did a big ultrasound, and later that night, a couple hours later, the doctor came in and said, we think we know what's wrong, but it's a very rare condition. So we're not going to say anything until we, really get the final results.
That's terrible.
I was
like a terrible response.
Yeah. They were like, but we think it's something with blood clots. So we're going to start you on blood thinners. So get put on the blood thinners. And they're like, well, you're not going home tonight. So we're going to get you a room and then we'll check back in with you in the morning.
That seems like a long time to wait with your arm like that.
I was in the waiting room for almost 45 minutes before I even went into a room. And then when I was in the room, it was probably another 6 hours before I got put on blood thinners.
And then overnight, they're like, then you had to wait overnight.
Mm-hmm. And of course I have everyone saying, what's going on? Are you okay? And of course I'm overwhelmed. I can't move my left arm. So I'm working on one hand at a time. Of course, all the pain medication you're on just wasn't a good situation. And due to all the COVID restrictions, I was only allowed to have one guest for 4 hours a day. That was it. So at this point in time, it's overnight. Obviously, I don't have anyone with me. It's the next morning. And this is where my moment kind of really changed everything. My surgeon walks in the door and says, has anyone spoken to you about what's going on? Of course, my heart is just racing. I'm by myself,
Right.
knowing something bad is going to come out of his mouth. And he said, well, good news. What you have is most likely fixable. Bad news, it's going to be a very long journey.
Mm.
So in that moment, I just, had okay, big girl pants on, bring it. What's going on? And he said, you have a rare condition called Thoracic Outlet Syndrome. And that means that your veins, nerves, or arteries from your chest that flow to your arms have been compressed and damaged by the compression of your clavicle and your first rib.
Mm.
Fun fact, your first rib is right underneath your clavicle bone. A lot of people were surprised by that. So what happened for me was my veins were completely spiderwebbed internally with scar tissue because of the compression happening years over years over years. Now, he told me this, and of course I immediately just start crying. But all I remember, it was kind of like a movie for me, almost like being a fly on the wall looking at this kind of unraveling. He explained to me that you're going to be in the hospital for a week right now. We need to do surgery, but in order to do that, we need to get your blood to a certain level. It can't be too thin or you'll bleed out during surgery, right. Or it can't be too thick because then we can't do the surgery. So it had to be just right. And then in a month, you're going to go into MGH in Boston and you're going to have your first rib taken out. And then from there, a month later, you're going to come back here and you're going to do another surgery to go back in and remove any remaining blood clots in any of your veins. I felt in that moment confusion. I was petrified. My life changed.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I wish there was a mirror for my face, because seeing my doctor's reaction to my face told me everything I needed to know. Here I am, 29 years old, being told that you have a serious blood condition at the time. Your entire left arm is clotted. The blood is not draining back into your body like it should be. Mm-hmm. You're going to be here for a week. So say goodbye to any work or any weekend plans, right?
Any busyness. Yeah, you're going to have to sit with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a long road. You have 3 more surgeries. I hadn't even had 3 surgeries in my life. Mm-hmm. And your life's going to change. It's going to be different. And what that looked like at that time was just a giant black hole for me. Because in that moment, I needed to process what was happening to me, process what was being told to me in my plan for my health, and then try to relay that to my family.
Oh, yeah.
Via a phone call, which is just the most disconnected feeling you possibly could have, because I couldn't imagine trying to FaceTime anyone right then and there.
Yeah. It's interesting. When you first heard that information from the surgeon, did you attach to more the things that were going to change, or were you someone that kind of attached to the hope that, like, oh, this could be fixed? No, it was more like hope. There was no hope, even though he said that you didn't hear that part, or
no,
you did hear it, but you chose to attach to that other part.
Right. I heard you're going to have a long couple of months. You're going to have to undergo a major surgery. Right.
Yeah.
Your
And
rib is going to be
yeah.
taken out of your body.
And you got enough. You have enough.
Yeah.
You have enough of those ribs, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too, because we started this conversation about how busy you were, like how busy your life was, like just because that was the natural tendency for you to exist in this. And then here you are at a complete stop, like
complete.
So I would imagine that is jarring for someone that is always on the go, doing. And now you're like, guess what?
Can't.
You might not be able to do any of that for a long time.
When so I was an account manager when this was happening, and I was like picking up phone calls, like trying to deal with my clients, like in the hospital bed. And finally I was like, I can't keep doing this, but like, that's all I knew. That's all I wanted to keep doing.
I think we're very conditioned in that sense. I think there's something, I'd be curious to like dig into, like if you ever do this and then like dig into why that tendency, like I know you say it's always just like something you did, but I wonder if there was a trigger for that, because, you know, I don't know if you've read this in this journey of healing, and we'll talk about this journey that you've gone on, but have you ever read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, or any of these kind of like trauma books? So I talk to a lot of people about these, like people that get these physical ailments or whatever. And I'm not saying that this is your journey, but it's always so interesting to me how stories like, you know, I did this and I was doing this and I was, you know, whatever, I was doing these hard things or climbing mountains or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden my body said, hold on a second, we're going to stop this because it's not long-term. It's not healthy. So not putting that on you as that something, but it might be something really interesting to look into, to like think, oh, I wonder if my body was like, hey, Robyn,
slow down. Yeah.
Slow down.
Slow down. Yep.
Life is here and you probably want to live it in the way that you want.
I was supposed to go on a snowboard trip to Killington 2 weeks after. And when I tell you, like to the day I was getting discharged, you sure I can't go on that snowboard trip?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
My doctor was like, do I need to keep you here so you don't even try to go on that snowboard trip?
Yeah. Was there a point in that where, like, at what point did you accept it? Did you say, okay, this is now what I have to do, and this is how my life is going to be?
So it got accepted in stages, I'll say. Yeah. So for me, my first level of acceptance, honestly, was like 30 seconds after that, because I looked at myself and, you know, like I said, I'm a person who goes, but I'm also usually the person that takes care of everyone around me. Like I'm always, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Oh, I'll get to myself eventually. And I'm also as vocal and loud that I usually am. Like I'm always a social butterfly, but I'm also very reserved at the same time. Like I like to sit back and kind of observe. Like I'm never one to kind of jump forward or really kind of defend any way, shape, or form, or like confront. So for me, right, my surgeon comes in, tells me everything, gives me the plan, saint, wrote it all on the whiteboard so I could take pictures of it and try to really kind of process it. He even hands me a tissue and is like, I know this is a lot to try to take in, but I'm here. But for me, I had to accept what I was just told and try to process it as quick as I can, because I had to make phone calls and, you know, and tell my family, I'm going to be here for at least a week. So you guys need to figure it out. And then trying to explain, you know, not only explain, but for me, I felt like I couldn't cry or show my emotion.
So you had to be strong one?
Exactly. I had to be the strong one.
Because you wanted to take care of them, because you were worried that they would worry.
Correct. And I knew they were worrying, right? But so in my brain, I kind of flipped, I call it like the light switch. Like I like turned my emotions off. And I really just, I called my family, black and white, explained to them what was happening, tried my best not to cry, not to show emotion, just stick to the facts. And that worked. And I had never done that before. So I was already seeing changes in myself because of this one thing that had just happened to me within the last 12 hours.
Yeah. But do you think that turning that off, quote unquote, worked? Or do you think it was just kind of pushing things down and for a later
pushed things
date?
down for a much later date.
Yeah. So I get that. I get that though, because, as someone that wants to take care of other people,
right.
even in a dire moment of your own, you're still putting others ahead. When they probably were like, if they heard that, they were probably like, what are you doing?
I eventually told them that after months of therapy.
Right.
Right. I sat everyone down and just finally it was like, come to Jesus moment.
And they were like, you didn't have to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's me, right?
That's what we do.
Yep. So kind of, that week came and went, had my surgery, came home, and in between that and my rib removal was about 4 to 6 weeks. And in that time frame, I was out of work, obviously. I had severe restrictions. I couldn't physically, even doctor's orders, but physically, I could not move my arm past here. I couldn't stretch my arm straight. I couldn't do anything with my left side at all. And that forced me to slow down.
To sit with yourself.
To sit.
How did that go?
Netflix.
How did that go though? Was that like a total brain exercise for you?
It was such an emotional roller coaster.
I bet.
Because I couldn't do anything. I cook, I clean, not because those are the housewife duties, because I truly love to do that stuff. That brings me joy. When I'm stressed, I clean and I cook, and that's my jam. But I couldn't do any of it.
Yeah.
And that started driving my anxiety wild.
Because you have no routine. Your routine of 29 years is now
gone,
shot
out the window. Yep.
Nothing.
I wasn't sleeping at night because just the pain was so bad. So I was just sleeping as much as I could 24/7, right?
Yeah.
Barely getting out of bed because...
Does depression come along?
Depression hit the nail on the head about a month later.
Yeah. Well, those things, even though that's pain induced, I think sometimes we lend to those too. It's it's easier to be asleep than to
deal with anything else in reality.
Life. Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
I had to, this is going to get even very vulnerable. I was 29 years old and I couldn't take a shower by myself.
Right.
Couldn't brush my hair, braid my hair. I had to teach my husband everything.
Yeah.
And
you had to rely on people.
To the women out here listening, trying to teach your husband how to braid hair is a chore. But I had to rely on people. Out. Yeah, seriously. I had to rely on people. I had to depend on people. I had to be vulnerable.
Yeah. And when all along in your whole life, you probably could have.
Yep.
But you chose not to. Right.
And the hardest part, other than recovery, obviously, was allowing people to help.
Yeah.
That took weeks. And that didn't happen until after my rib removal.
Mm.
So fast forward to day of rib removal surgery, heading into Boston. I'm ecstatic because I just can't wait for this to be over and put behind me. Right.
So you can get back to work.
Literally. Honestly, I'm I just need my life back. Come on. Let's just get this over and done with. Yeah. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I was still weirdly positive. But I went into surgery, came out of surgery, opened my eyes. And this is kind of another moment for me. I thank God my husband was in the room because I looked at him and he just saw the expression on my face and he just said, "You're okay. There were complications in surgery, but you're gonna be okay." So my surgery is about twice as long as it should have been. And when he was in, my area of my thoracic area, my brachial plexus, he found so much damage to my nerves that he equated fixing my nerves on my brachial plexus to scraping cement off of the side of the road.
Mm.
So obviously when you cause that much agita to your entire nervous system on your arm, you're going to have angry nerves.
Yeah.
So when I woke up, I had zero sensation of my left arm. I didn't even know I had a left arm pretty much because I just could not feel it. I could not move it. I could barely touch it. It hurt so bad. When I did try to touch it, it was just so excruciatingly painful. So that added a whole nother layer now to my thoracic outlet syndrome story, now to my recovery. Nerves can take up to 2 years to regenerate, if they even regenerate.
Right. Very sensitive.
So today it's, mid-June 2024. I still don't have some sensation in my arm. And they can't tell me if that will ever come back.
Right.
During that time, I was told we did our best, but I don't know if your coloring will ever return back to normal. We don't know if you'll ever have full use of your arm. We don't know if you'll ever be able to lift it above your head again. When they went in, there were so many more unknowns.
Right.
Where I just went back to that exact same numb, confused feeling again. And I felt
was
like
there anger involved at all?
There was slight anger, but I felt like it was more towards just the fact that I had to slow down. I didn't have a choice.
So there was no anger at the process, or you didn't know that this was a chance, or any of those things?
There was no anger in that aspect because That's good. Knew, honestly, I have to say my surgeon was phenomenal. He created a thoracic outlet program in Boston. It's the only one in the country. People fly in all over to see him from Australia, every which way. He's seeing people from all over the world. How weird that
you're down the street from this.
And I always say I count my blessings. I'm so thankful to live in a place that we are, because if not, who would have known what would have happened?
Right.
But just kind of surviving, right? I kind of just went into that fight or flight mode in my brain. I was like, let's just survive right now.
Okay.
Don't try to worry on anything else. We just need to survive. And, after hearing, you may never be the same again.
Yeah.
After this surgery, not knowing that was even a chance, that kind of threw a whole new wrench into this ballgame, right? I was even more scared now.
Right.
Well, what does life look like? Now, at least previously, I had, you'll get back to normal.
Right.
And now a month later. Right. And now a month later is, your life.
We don't know.
Correct. We don't know. And that's awful. The doctors felt guilty even having to say, we don't know. But that's just the truth about life. He goes, I had, an old lady have the surgery, and within a day she was walking out of here. But you're a very healthy 29-year-old. And I was in the hospital for double the amount of time because my pain was so severe. I was on so much pain medication because of just the nerve damage. Right. It was wild. My surgeon just said he had never seen a case like this before. Typically with thoracic outlet, there's symptoms that lead up to all of this happening. It doesn't just happen like that, like my case did.
Yeah.
So
do they know, is there, can you pinpoint how it manifested, or is it genetic?
They think it happened because of my bone structure, just, how I was born. Right. And a lot of people, it happens to D1 athletes, a lot of pitchers, volleyball players. Obviously I'm not that. So their kind of natural conclusion was, oh, thanks. So their kind of natural conclusion was, some people can just be born with, I think they called it a skinny thoracic area, whatever that means.
It's the latest trend.
Yeah, apparently. So kind of
Let
fast forward.
Were you, this is me assuming, but based on how you've described your life before, were you someone that was always there's always a black and white answer to things, or you always wanted a definitive, and this I don't know from your doctor was scarier than someone saying no, you're definitely not going to be able to use your arm?
Yes. Yep.
Because I wanted, at least then you can plan.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I asked, I was like, well, what about in a year from now? And he was like, I cannot in my right, as a doctor tell you anything because we don't know.
Right.
So that was obviously a giant pill.
Because you can't plan if you don't know.
Can't plan if you don't know. And that's challenging for a planner.
Well, that's a lesson that I think that probably changed you in a way, right?
It kind of combining, all the unknowns of what my life was going to look like, right? Heck, I didn't know I had nerve damage, right? Until they went in there and saw it. I tried to twist it to be a positive of we don't
Like
know all
intentional,
of
forced.
right,
kind of thing?
intentional, because when I had come home from the hospital, again, all of this happened so fast, right? I never really had the time to research what was happening to me, to actually process what was happening to me either. It was just, you're going in for surgery, you're in the hospital for a week, you're home, you're recovering, you're back in for another rib taken out, then you're home, now you're back a month later. It was just go, 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 again, per my life. But in that time frame, I had to stop and be vulnerable, be open, allow others to help. I couldn't cut my own food. I couldn't feed myself.
That's very humbling.
When I tell you I couldn't do anything, and the guilt that comes with that is extraordinary. I had to sleep in a recliner in my living room for 2 months because I physically could not lay down without
Right.
pain. So the experience of being cut off, right, from, I would have people come over and visit, but they were on the couch, right? I just had no physical connection, right, for 2 months. So the
Just
depression.
with yourself.
Yep, just with myself and all my thoughts.
And your
all
pain.
my thoughts and my pain and all my thoughts of, oh, that's not how I would put the dishes away, or that's not how I would fold the laundry. But at the end of the day, it just kind of kept coming back to, well, you can't do it all, Robyn. So you have to give up that control.
It's hard.
Which is something I have never done. Never.
Have you learned?
Yes, now we're great at it.
Yeah.
We delegate like a pro. But through all of this, it just really taught me two major life lessons. One, when you need help, there's nothing to be ashamed of to get that help.
No. We assume it.
Yeah. It took me, kind of tying back to the beginning of this podcast, I thought I was alone, right? Of course, every day everyone's reaching out. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And there finally got to a point where one of my very close friends said, stop sugarcoating it. How are you feeling?
Right.
And that's kind of what started, everything for me, was breaking that kind of glass ceiling of, oh, I can share my emotions. I can share that, I'm really not doing good. I've watched 4 seasons of Vampire Diaries in a day and a half. What am I doing with my life?
Yeah. So it was like a cut the bullshit moment of like
really
a friend telling you to like, oh, good.
Snap
That's
out
a
of
good
it.
friend. Hope you're still friends with that person.
To this day, I cannot imagine my life without her. And she's been through it all. And it just so happened that she was able to really share some great insight.
And sometimes it's you have to get to that point, though. I feel like sometimes someone might have said that to you 6 months before that. Someone might have said that to you 1,000 times before. But like at that moment, when there's just a little light peeking through the crack, she was like, let's go. We're going in. We're cracking this.
Exactly. Because I felt alone. I felt no one else feels like this before. No one else is going through what I'm going through.
I'm a burden. I'm
exactly. I'm a burden.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of times I would say, I'm sorry to ask you one more thing. Can you fill up my water? Or I know you just sat down, but I'm so sorry. Can you do this? And I was like, stop being sorry for asking for things that you need, because everyone around you knows you can't physically do anything. Right. And they also wouldn't offer if they weren't being serious.
Right.
That is one thing I want everyone to hear. People don't offer to help if they're not serious about helping.
Yep.
That was something. And then, for me reaching out for help, my friend really helped me see that I needed the help, because when I tell you, like, this gets me emotional. Imagine getting your rib taken out and then curling up in the fetal position on a floor, crying hysterically for no reason. And my husband would just literally like coddle my head in his lap. And it got to that point where I think I did that for about a week straight. And I said, I think I need help. Something is not okay. So
I think that's important. I mean, a week, a lot of people wouldn't realize that even in a week, you know, yeah. And the body will do things that we cannot explain.
I was just crying all the time. Yeah. I was so depressed. And I never thought I'd ever get depression in a million years, right?
Right. Well, you're too busy to get depressed.
Exactly. Why would I be depressed? I'm just always on the go, right? Yeah. Now that I'm still sitting with my thoughts, now I'm depressed. Wow, that must suck. Yeah.
But it's not even that. I mean, yeah, it's not even, I think there's like this, I think there are a lot of people that seemingly are happy or busy or living a amazing life that can still feel depression or anxiety or all the things, because guess what? We're all human, and those are all like parts of it. And I hate that the way to finding this joy in being a human, and this joy in letting other people help you and helping them find happiness too, because I think there's happiness that comes with helping other people, which, you used to help people and that brought you happiness.
Yep.
It sucks that like such a tragic piece of your life brought you to this, what seemingly is a good version of you. Yep. Like, it's weird to look at it that way, right?
That's what I always say. People, to this day, it's been over 2 years now, right? Yeah. It feels like just yesterday for me, obviously. And people always say like, well, how'd you overcome that? Like, what? And for me, I gave myself no choice, kind of, after the therapy and all of that processing. But I kind of was like, look at your life now. You're happy, right? If this horrible thing didn't happen to you, what would your life have been like?
Busy.
So, yeah, as horrible of a situation that I had to endure and my family had to endure, and how scary that was.
Right.
I'm so thankful it happened.
Yeah.
Because it just brought my relationships with every single person in my life that much closer. What is that phrase? It takes a village. My village came out.
Yeah.
And I am so thankful for the village that I still have to this day. They know who they are. And my friends literally were dropping everything to come help watch our dog, right, for the day while my husband was in the hospital with me. They would come and entertain my husband so he didn't have to think, oh, my wife is just sitting at a hospital bed by herself crying and in pain. And
you see what love looks like in a different way, I think.
Yes.
When you face something like this, I think you see beyond the performative aspect of love that I think sometimes we just kind of are conditioned to see, or it's just kind of the expected version of love. And this is where you see like, oh,
you dive in.
These people really actually physically care and they want to help. It's not like this performative, like, no, I got you a present, or
exactly.
It's like, it's very raw, I guess, is maybe the best way to see that. It's interesting too, because we come into this conversation. I don't know too much. You gave me a little bit of information about your story, and you've told and you've walked through, and I know these are just pieces of your journey. There's a lot more that comes along with it. But the one that stands out to me the most is the moment that your friend really got real with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the other pieces were like, you had to go along with it, right? Like you had to like go with the surgery. You had to listen to the doctor. Yep. You had to do all these things. But this was like where you were like, oh, like there's a choice that I need to like process. And it's just so fascinating, the power of language and the power of words, and how the right moment, right time, right words can sometimes change everything.
Everything happens for a reason. And that's what I've said since all of this has started.
I mean, good for you. I don't know if I totally buy into that. Only because...
I know.
It's hard.
It's tough.
It's tough. It is tough because I don't know. I don't know if we say that to ourselves, because I've said these things too. I don't know if we say that to ourselves to make us feel better, or if we really, I don't know if I really believe it for me, because I think back, like, why would my mom die at 32?
Right.
Was there a reason for that? But then I can go along with the idea of, like, I wouldn't be this version of Matt had that not happened. But I still don't think that's a great reason. You know what I'm saying? So it's a weird,
it's a weird concept.
It's a weird concept. I get it though. And I hear it a lot. So there must be something to it if people are saying it, so just put my own thoughts out there.
Yeah. And then I think, at least, like, for me, kind of taking something so negative and trying to turn it into the best positive that I could be, that was obviously a coping mechanism for me to start, right? But throughout therapy, right, it turned into this beautiful thing.
Yeah, it becomes like a mission almost.
It really, really does. Because I never set out to be an inspiration in any way, shape, or form. But after, my surgeries, I returned slowly back to work for about 2 months. Corporate.
That job?
Yep, that job. And it was just not conducive. Yeah. I was working way too many hours a day. I was not healing my nerves, right? I'm typing all the time. You can't heal your nerves when you're typing. So one day I just kind of woke up and I was like, I can't. I need to be true to myself if I'm going to continue this journey on,
good for you.
Feeling, comfortable in whatever this new Robyn looks like. Like, you need to give yourself some TLC for once.
Yeah.
Because you're not. So I told my husband, I said,
look at you putting yourself first.
Right. So this was like such a huge learning. Like, when I tell you, I had a moment this morning where I pulled into my driveway, and I thought, you are not the person that you were 3-4 years ago. And I said it to myself, I was like, I'm so proud of who you are today, Robyn.
Good for you.
And I never would have thought I would be here today. Right. So, up and left corporate, did not have a plan, did not have another job lined up. I just needed to focus on what made me happy. And no surprise there, it always came back to helping people. So, but for me, right, I was still at that time only able to lift 6 months after my surgery, 10 pounds with my hand, with my arm. I physically could not lift more than that.
Right.
So I made it my mission to get stronger, get my strength back. I had to reteach myself everything with my left hand, how to open a door, how to turn a faucet on. Still to this day, I can't hold my arm up for a very long period of time because it becomes painful. But I made it my mission to just do more with my hands, obviously in a safe environment and taking care of myself still. But every single day was, what are we going to do today to make you happy, to put you first, and to make your health a priority? So within 6 months, my life had 360 flipped. And now I was becoming, the new Robyn. And through all of this, through this newfound confidence that I had experienced, right, because of this horrible situation turn amazing, I got the confidence. Everyone around me, again, my village said, start your own business. Mm-hmm. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You start it for a couple of years and it doesn't work out. At least you can say you tried. So for me, I wanted to continue working with my hands and I wanted to help people and do what I love. Bam. Charcuterie company came to be, in cheese. So on an everyday basis, right, we are breaking down wheels of cheese. I'm prepping with my hands. I'm folding salami. I'm constantly working with my hands now on a day-to-day basis. It's like physical
therapy through your work.
Exactly. That's exactly kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And to this day, we book we're booking weddings. We are doing, 150 plus person grazing tables. Like
that's awesome.
We're slammed, which is amazing. But none of this would have ever happened in a million years if it weren't for this horrible thing that happened to me. Right. Because I'd probably still be in corporate, loving the paycheck, right? We all love our corporate paycheck, but nothing was soul fulfilling to me. And that was always my issue. So now, to this day, again, every day I try to bake in some level of something for me, whether it's 5 minutes of peace and quiet or reflection, whether it's a meditation, whether it's a
Old
face
Robyn would not
mask.
do that.
Oh, old Robyn never. Old Robyn would be like, all right, you have to get your nails done. Okay, it looks like in 3 weeks from now, we can maybe squeeze it in here.
You have a
Now-
20-minute window. We can put that in.
Exactly. Now it's like, no. We're doing a
Yeah.
pampered day. We are blocking my day off from work and we are having ourselves a day. Because why? Because you deserve it. Because you went
Yeah.
through hell and back and you're here. And that's
Right.
what matters.
Right. No, I mean, it ties back to what you were saying at the beginning of like, you have this lovely, beautiful, chaotic, messy, fly by the seat of your pants sometimes life that probably never would have been in 4 years ago Robyn's mind, that like
Right.
that would be how you would
Right.
exist in the world and be happy about it.
Right.
Because I think there's
And-
something really beautiful about that.
There is. And kind of, throughout telling my story over the last 2 years, like I said earlier, I never ever set out to be an inspiration, but I know a couple of people who have told me directly that they have quit their corporate jobs and pursued their passions because of me. And when
If she
someone
can do
told
it.
me,
Yeah.
and someone said, like, if Robyn could do it, I could do it. And sorry, I'm getting really emotional. So for me, I was always kind of, the one like on the side observing, right? Like I never thought I'd be the reason why someone would
You were the
do
cheerleader
something.
before.
Right. I was always the cheerleader, never the leader. And I was always fine with being the cheerleader. But it's so humbling.
Yeah.
And, really kind of through this, Matt, I obviously I don't want what happened to me to happen to anyone. It was the worst experience I could ever go through.
Right.
But I want people to know that just because society tells us one thing doesn't mean we have to do it. Just because, you go to college, you need to get a job. That doesn't need to look like 9 to 5. That can be whatever you want it to be. You go through a crazy life event, you're also not alone. We may not go through the exact same event, but I've been literally on the floor crying because I'm in so much excruciating pain and I'm so depressed. I've been there. And I want people to know that it gets better. It takes time. And when you're in it, you don't see that. So I always try to kind of, I have friends who are to this day in a dark depression still from obviously things happening all the time. We all have friends that are depressed, right? And I try to just make that effort of checking in because, when I was so depressed, sometimes I would just say, I just want someone to say like, I believe in you. Like, you got this, right? And we never do that. Society trains us to just live our lives and not really check in on that mental health aspect.
Yeah.
And
I think there's also an element of people that I think if we as a society had more faith in sharing all the parts with each other publicly, being vulnerable, like admitting, like, I'm not great today, but I know that's okay because life is not all super highs or super lows. And, and I think the more we talk about how we feel, the more we answer honestly when someone says, how are you? Like the more we do that and normalize that it's not always good. Thanks. How are you? But like today really sucks. And here's why. And thanks for asking.
Exactly.
I think we can get to a place in which people feel more comfortable being more like you describe, and helping others in a way that maybe is not intentional. Like I'm out here to try to help you. I just care, I just want to share. So, I think it's weird to say great that you found this new version of you through such a really terrible experience.
Though.
It is great.
Yeah.
But it sucks the way you had to get there.
Exactly. That's what exactly. It sucks that
but
you
at
had
the same time, it's like, do you think your life would have just continued to be just busy,
100%. Yep.
Until you hit the, and then
until I
eventually
had a burnout
hit
and
a
crashed.
Wall, right?
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm wondering if you could go back to Robyn that's sitting alone in her hospital room, just like spiraling, like how am I going to get to work? How am I going to get that project done? How am I going to get my arm fixed? How am I going to tell my family? Is there anything that like this version of you would want to tell her, whisper in her ear, or would you just want to let it all unfold?
I would probably just continue to say, like, it's going to be okay. I know you can't see it right now, but you need to trust the process. Every body is different. Everyone heals differently. Everyone reacts to everything differently. That's the issue with medicine, right? No one can give you a definitive answer because no two people are alike.
Right.
So what I think I would just tell her is, you got this. You are stronger than you ever could have imagined. People look up to you. Heck, my own mother, I can't tell you the amount of times that she made me cry because she just kept saying, like, you are my idol right now. I could never go through what you went through or what you're going through. And I would just tell her, like, you're strong. You're a strong ass woman. You got this, girlfriend. Just keep going because it's gonna get better. You're gonna live out your dream that you never even knew you had.
You didn't even know you had it.
I didn't even know I ever wanted to own my own business. And here I am. And it's so just like, pinch me. Like a couple months ago, I did a news segment and it debuted on Valentine's Day about my thoracic outlets journey. And I know it's kind of tied in my grandmother with all of that. It's just, it's such an emotional, crazy, amazing roller coaster that just keep doing it, girlfriend. You will get there. I promise you. It sucks, but don't sit in the mud. You will get there.
Yeah.
Just keep
going. It's important.
One foot in front of the other. That's what I tell myself on a daily basis.
And that's good. That's how we can only live in the present, right? So like pick the things that we want to do that make us happy, that bring us joy. There are going to be things that we don't want to do that we have to do.
Right.
Do them and then focus on the things that you want to. Before you tell us how we can connect with you, please just tell everyone what your email signature sign off is because I love it so much. And then you can tell us how to contact you.
So like I said earlier, we're fun, we're classy, but we like to, poke some fun at everything, right? So my email sign off is Bree Awesome and stay cheesy.
I love it. It's so good. So if people want to learn more about what you offer, I mean, I don't know, is it all just local at this point?
Yeah. So at this point in time, we do kind of, driving deliveries. So we're not shipping at this point in time, but if you're in the, the local Mass North Shore area, definitely, reach out. And also if people just want to connect for personal reasons, reach out. I would love.
Tell us how to do that.
Yep. So for me, you're going to reach out to @Boards for Days, BOARDS FORDAYS _ on Instagram. You can also hit us up hello@boardsfordays.com. Check out our website, of course, boardsfordays.com. We're also on Facebook, as you guessed it, @Boards4Days.
We'll put all those links too in the show notes so people can easily access it. And, I think for business sake, if they're local, definitely check that out. See what she's doing. Support her on Instagram and socials and things like that. But also, if you're going through a moment or maybe you're facing the same exact condition and you want to talk through it or you want to see compare war stories or whatever it may be, I know that Robyn would want to hear from you and connect with you. So please take advantage of that, whether she's going to say it out loud or not. Okay. Because I think that's so important. This connections and feeling like we aren't alone is so important. It'll help with depressive feelings or those other feelings that come about in other ways. So please take advantage of that. I think that's it. I think we've hit this place. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing multiple, they were like incremental little shifts that kind of got you to this. Like it just kept turning it a little bit. Can't see what I'm doing if you're listening, but I'm just like turning something in front of my face. But it feels like each one was a notch getting you closer to this version of you. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you guys for listening to the Life Shift podcast. If you enjoy this show or it's your first time here, if you could give me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, I would love that. But with that, I will say goodbye for now. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Robyn.
Thank you. Be awesome and stay cheesy.
I love it.